Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today on the Dairy Signal, we're going to be talking about one of my personal favorite discussions, and that is involving calves and the different housing types that we have the opportunity to potentially see. And if we had the option to start from scratch or maybe retrofit, what would that look like? This afternoon, we're going to be talking to two dairy producers who have had the opportunity to really think about their calf housing systems, and we're going to dive into the why did they make the decisions they did? What changes would they make still today? And what management factors you might want to consider when you're thinking about maybe retrofitting, maybe building new, or maybe you're just dreaming about what you want your calf housing systems to look like in the future. So, joining us this afternoon, I'm very excited to have Christine Bender, who is a part owner at McFarlandale Dairy, as well as Sam Peets, who's a part owner at Rosie Lane Holstein. So, we're excited to have both of you on here this afternoon, Sam and Christine, and we're going to be diving into a whole bunch of questions. And before we get into the whole, what does your system look like here? Would you mind just giving me a 30-second intro about who you are, where you're from, and real quick one. I'm going to have Sam start with just a quick introduction about yourself, if you will.
You want me to start or Christine?
I'm just going to have you give me a 30
Okay.
second lowdown, if you will.
Yeah. Okay. So a little bit about our calves. So at Rosie Lane, we are feeding about 200 wet calves on milk right now. We put up a brand new wet calf barn, moved into it in April of 2025. So that's a rail feeding system and group housing. So we can dive into that a little bit deeper. So going through our first full year and change of seasons with that.
Okay. Well, we're looking forward to talking through some of that here in just a moment. And Christine, would you mind just giving a brief introduction about yourself, and then we'll really dive into things here?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. Christine Bender here with McFarlandale Dairy. We're located in Watertown, Wisconsin, just across town from Rosie Lane Holsteins. So really excited to be with you guys today. I am very passionate about calves. Actually, when I came back home to the family farm, I'm sixth generation. When I came back home full time 9 years ago, I was in charge of all the young stock on our farm. And I can tell you, if you looked at what we did 9 years ago to today, facilities have changed 100%. None of those buildings or hutches that we used to use exist today. So we used to have calf hutches, super hutches, and then we had a two-story dairy barn that we converted the top to small free stalls where we transitioned some calves probably around that 5 to 6 month mark. And then we had an old heifer shed that too is gone. So we've changed all of our facilities, but obviously a lot of things still hold true in terms of how we care for our calves. But we milk about 1,950 cows on two sites. And we have about 30 full-time people and raise all of our calves on site up until about 6 months.
Okay. So I just want to say, as we're who are joining in as well, that this can be a really great interactive episode. If you're looking to ask questions, there are three dots you can find at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you press those three dots, you'll be seeing a little sign that says ask a question, and you can type in your information there. It does ask for a name. You don't have to put one. I've seen numerous amounts of spaces and NA and all of anything in between. So if you're not comfortable asking with your name on there, that is just fine. We want to hear from you. So ask your questions throughout today, but really diving into things here now, Christine, it sounds like you have been through the gamut of every possibility, an option from what you started with 9 years ago until today, which is really exciting because you've got a lot of different thoughts under your belt on what's worked, what hasn't, and maybe there's some things that could work better still today. But if you wouldn't mind, would you go a little bit into what does your system look like today, and how did that come about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say probably, so we built two calf barns 2 years ago, and we added two more calf barns just this past summer. And we probably spent a couple years planning. As our farm has grown, we've kind of taken small, steady steps, I would say, in terms of growth. Maybe 9 years ago, being around 400 cows, and I think we had close to the amount of calves that we have today,
Mhm.
which is crazy,
Mhm.
but we run a very low cull rate and obviously utilize sex semen and Angus or beef semen to get the most from them as well. But we've really taken it, obviously it always comes down to calf health. So as we've grown, part of being a CAFO was coming up with a compliance schedule. And so it was basically the DNR that said, you either need to put your hutches on concrete and contain everything that comes in contact with them, or put up barns. And at the time, we had a phenomenal calf manager, and we were really excited about building a barn. So we toured, oh my goodness, I can't even count how many barns. We spent a couple years touring and planning. We went primarily in Wisconsin, looking at a lot of auto feeder facilities originally, and then kind of the big building with everything in one. And we settled on, if you want to pull up maybe one of the pictures of our new calf barns, they're pretty simple in my mind. It was kind of, we still believe to this day that calf hutches are probably the gold standard. So when we went into building a barn, I know my husband made the point that the goal was to get calves, hopefully, I don't think he kind of said, I don't think you can outperform calf hutches, but if you can do something to get as close as you can to calf hutches. So again, I told you we looked at a lot of auto feeder barns, we looked at tunnel vent calf barns, we looked at, again, big wide barns with multiple rows of pens. And I think it kind of came down to number one, how do you want to house your calves? Again, with the original thought I had of auto feeders, it was group housing. And I know our veterinarian right away said that comes with a lot of challenges. Just think about your kids in daycare. And if one gets sick, then they spread it to the others. So your risk is much larger. So we went with individual housing, as you can see, our individual pens. Another point that we really focused on was ventilation. So how do you get the best ventilation for these small animals, and be able to keep them warm in the winter and cool in the summer? In hutches, I think we always had better gains in wintertime. We adopted a high feeding plane of nutrition, so I think we could overcome the extra energy needs that calves have in the winter. And we always saw lower gains in the summer and thought that heat stress was really one of the things that was inhibiting us the most. So in terms of ventilation, at that time, the positive pressure tubes were probably still the most widely adopted practice. So the first two calf barns have positive pressure tubes for ventilation, and then we have high sidewalls. I believe they're 14-foot high sidewalls, and we have a split curtain. So there's an upper and lower curtain, and it is fully automated. So the fans, I think at the time the ventilation was set, like the recommendations from the university were 4 air exchanges per hour. And we had a consultant that said I would increase it a little bit. So I think we went to 6 to 8 air exchanges per hour, just knowing that as equipment ages and collects dust and dirt, that things don't perform like you would like them to. So those fans run all year round, same speed. They're not variable speed, and there's just tubes above the calves. And one thing we did learn by touring is that if you can, instead of doing like say 2 tubes, one on each side, if you can split those into say 4 tubes, 4 fans, 4 tubes, it won't be quite as noisy. And that's something we forgot when we modified our one of our 2 new barns. And I'll share a little bit more about what modifications we made from the first 2 barns to the 2 barns that we just built this last summer. But then the other main thing we looked at was drainage. So again, in terms of where is all the urine and manure gonna go? We were accustomed to calf hutches being on a gravel base, and they were in the hutches until weaning, and then we would just clean up the clean up all the bedding pack and put down fresh gravel and just kind of let things sit as much as possible. So in terms of drainage, we did the same thing. I think in that last photo you showed, you could see that the concrete stops maybe a foot into the pen, and then it is primarily gravel base. And underneath that we have clay, so nothing's going through that, but we have, I'm gonna guess like 8 inches of gravel. So when we clean out our pens, we go ahead and we scoop all of that out with a skid loader, and then we can put fresh gravel down. And I'm excited now that we have the 2 new barns. We have all in, all out with the new facilities. And in terms of ventilation, I'll share maybe a little bit more further on how we changed and modified that in the 2 newer barns. But kind of first glance is just kind of mimicking the calf hutch. So we have high sidewalls, we have the south-facing solar panel design, so we get a lot of natural sunlight, a lot of fresh air. And we manage the curtains on a automated control set on temperature as well as wind and rain sensors.
Trying to keep up with you, Christine. Oh, great stuff. Sorry for the delay there.
Oh, that's all right.
Appreciate all the background. I had the privilege of jumping in mid-story, but I got the quick lowdown. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
While we let people digest a little bit about the learning, kind of the initial learning curve and what led you into it, let's jump over to Sam for a moment and kind of get the lay of the land of what you guys are into right now, how it came to be about, more or less the background before we really dive into everybody else's questions.
Great. So Christine did a good job of introducing herself. So again, my name is Sam Peets. I'm a partner here at Rosie Lane Holsteins, also in Watertown. So same school district as Christine. So compare a lot of notes. Same vet. So get a lot of the same advice, just different day of the week, right? So right now, Rosie Lane is milking 1,850 cows, also on 2 sites. Our home site in Watertown does all the heavy lifting, really similar to McFarlandale, actually. So there's about 950 cows going across the deck or getting milked 3 times a day. In Watertown, all our calvings happen there. All our calves are born there then because of that. So we are also raising wet calves till our calves leave probably right at 5 months, so not quite 6 months of age, and come back as springers. All our calves stay in the state of Wisconsin when they're out at growers. They stay pretty close and try to keep the herd as close as we can that way. And so like I talked about in the beginning, we're raising about 200 calves on milk at any given time in a rail feeding system, group pens. If my pictures made it through, we could try and share some of mine. So yeah, this was a new build inspired by Modak Dairy out in South Dakota, because we also went and toured a lot of barns. If I can give some history there, we had a different style calf barn previously with individual pens. That was built in the late 90s. And the idea at that time was to make calf chores and calf raising more efficient. And so that one person could still manage it and manage the office. And it performed well. It was one of the first ones out there. It was 4 rows of pens, tube ventilation, with a nice like wean calf area behind. It was called the back barn, where calves went post weaning. I couldn't tell you exact years, but before my time, Rosie Lane was playing around with paired housing and group housing of calves. Really liked the results. Some of the research that is being done at UW with Dr. Van Oss was, some of it was done here. Some of it was inspired by some of the stuff that we saw. So unfortunately, our old calf barn burned down in 2022. So we went for a while where our calves were raised off-site. Our wet calves were raised at a grower until we moved into this new barn that's pictured here in April of 25. So as you can kind of see, hopefully in this first picture, our calf barn has 4 rooms that are all insulated. And each room has 10 pens excuse me, they have 8 pens with 10 calves per pen. Calves go into those pens basically as soon as they've received all their colostrum. They come up from where they are born and stay in the same pen with all their buddies. They stay in those pens then until they're about 3 months old. So we're weaning today right around 8 or 9 weeks of age, and then they stay in there for close to a full month after that before they leave the barn. So some features of this barn that make it different. So I talked about the rail feeding, which is meaning on the opposite side of the pen from this picture, there is a series of bottle holders and headlocks. And then on the side that you can see that's closest to where the picture is taken from, you can hopefully pick out water tanks. So each pen has 24-hour access to water, and made it through the worst of the cold a couple weeks ago. Only had one frozen water tank. So calves had access to water even through all that, which is really good for rumen development and grain intake. And then we feed Free Choice textured starter, nothing special there, but Free Choice there in basically a hang over the rail feeder, I guess you'd call it. Black feeders that are very common. So things that we took into mind when looking at barns, in the past, we knew we liked group housing. We knew we could make it work. We knew how we wanted to manage cross sucking, and that we liked the benefits of group housing and how calves transition after weaning. We just wanted to find a better way to clean bedding and get the smell out from under calves. So we kind of took a different approach maybe than what Christine described, trying to accomplish the same thing as you're trying to keep the pen clean. And for us, it was about getting the smelly bedding out from under the calf to keep air fresh at calf nose level and have healthier, better developed lungs. So these pens are 12 by 24 feet, and basically then the gates in between that make up the pen are 12 feet long. So they split the pen in half and can swing and more or less move the calves over to half of the pen. Creates a straight shot with garage doors. I don't know if you want to try switching to a different picture, and maybe some people could get a better grasp for that. But the doors swing open. This was the best picture I had. The one that Cassie just advanced through was just trying to show what the bottle holders look like in the rail feeding system. So we got a kid in there somehow, but there is basically like the square looking things are bottle holders, and then there's headlocks there. If you want to go to the next slide or the next picture, then you can see, so the rooms are stacked in the barn hamburger style, for lack of a better way to say that. So there's 2 garage doors at each end of the room. On this end that the picture's taken from, when all the calves are moved over to one side of the pen, it's a straight shot. A skid loader can push the bedding straight out that garage door to a manure storage area. So we're cleaning that bedding every week is kind of the long and short of it, right? We're trying to get down to the concrete and start fresh every week and keep air fresh in the room. Ventilation wise, this is using a chimney system kind of inspired by hog and poultry. So there are 4 exhaust fans or chimney fans in each room that suck stale air out of the room, and they create a negative pressure draw, which then draws fresh air in from the eave through the attic. So there's spray foam insulation all around the room that seals it up, and then blow-in insulation in the ceiling that seals up and creates kind of that whole process, if I explained it well enough. We like it. Maybe that first picture could kind of show it, but we like it so it's bringing fresh air in more or less for each pen. If you could kind of pick it up in that picture on the far wall, there's like a bunch of black boxes in the ceiling. Those are the inlets for the room. So the fresh air comes in those inlets. They open and close as we're moving more or less air based on the temperature. And the idea is to shoot the air basically across the ceiling to the opposite wall. It falls and mixes at calf level and then heads out the chimney. Anyway, my point is we've seen some tunnel ventilated barns and other things. This is nice that it's mixing with the calves well without creating a draft. And it's only doing it per pen and even throughout the barn. Whereas you see some tunnel ventilated barns, they do a good job. The trick is always literally this time of year that we're in right now. It was 60 degrees yesterday and the concrete is still frozen underneath the calves. How do you get that air down by the calf and not create a draft? I haven't seen a lot of tunnel ventilated barns that can draw the air out and still push it down at calf level and not make the calves uncomfortable. So we're happy with this so far.
So then, Sam, just to complete the timeline within my brain, you said you moved into this in 2025. What time
Yeah.
of year did you move into it?
Say that again? It was
What
April.
April. Okay, so not quite
Yeah.
a year so far.
Right. We're going through, we're figuring out how spring works in there right now. So it hasn't been perfect. No calf barn is perfect, but it's definitely doing the things that we wanted it to do. And I think most of that first year is just figuring out basically the language of, this is complicated ventilation. I mean, there's a control head for each room and understanding the language of telling basically what you want it to do, because we have monitors for temperature, humidity percent, carbon dioxide, CO2, and then there is an ammonia one. Most of it is running off of temperature, and then there's like alarm levels for the other stuff. But basically, it's more complicated than it seems. It has more power to do more than I need it to. Is just telling it a strategy at this temperature inside the room. This is how much air I want the fan to move, and basically what air exchange rate I want it to be doing, and finding that fine line between enough air movement and too much air, creating a draft, I should say. So I always err on the side of a lot of air movement. I think the lowest. So in the very cold, we got it down to almost zero. We never had them down to zero. They never shut off. So the rooms get cold, but the idea is that there's always fresh air there. So I am a big believer in deep straw bedding, and put some calf jackets on and turn it to 8, 10, 12 air exchanges an hour to keep that fresh air down by the calves. And so far it's working. So
Awesome. So then maybe this is my curiosity and jumping ahead here on you guys. For both of you, does the bedding style change throughout the season, or have you chosen a bedding style that you stick through regardless of what it is outside?
I guess since I was just talking, I'll just answer quick. In this picture, we're doing straw. Straw is definitely king with bedding. We don't do any sawdust or sand underneath, especially since we're changing it so often. Right now, just like we're pretty resource driven. We can source corn stalks way easier than straw. So we just have straw under basically the youngest two rooms in the barn, more or less. So about a month, calves are on straw, and then they switch to corn stalks.
Yeah, for us in terms of bedding for the young calves, we like straw. We've kind of experimented again over my years at the farm. In hutches, I talked about how heat stress is really a concern. So in summer, we did try sawdust and sand. We thought the sand was really hard to manage, but we did like the sawdust. So we've kind of adopted a mixture of straw and sawdust, depending on the time of year. Obviously, long straw for nesting in the winter, and then kind of as we transition, we'll do a combo and then sawdust for summer.
Very nice. Thank you.
Mhm.
As you guys were talking through, obviously giving us the initial, like what you're in now, and you both kind of alluded to it or had touched on it, like what was the driving factor to shift into the new design or the new setup, if you will. What kind of research went into it? How long of a drafting process? I mean, some of it was necessity versus a wish list, but what kind of research versus site visits, and like what finally made you pull the trigger to put the system in place that you have today?
I think that's a great question. I can go first. So, again, we were kind of driven by our compliance schedule through the DNR with becoming a CAFO. So I love touring farms. I feel like no matter where you go, obviously visiting with dairy farmers, people are so honest and willing to tell you what works, what didn't work.
Yeah.
Even when you go to ones that, you're not so excited about, you still learn a lot, even if it's what not to do.
Amen. Yeah.
We took full advantage of people being willing to show us around and tell us what they're doing and what all that stuff. But we also were working with consultants, our veterinarian. We are feeding Vita Plus, milk replacer, and grain. So they were offering support. We work with a consultant vet. So they took us on some tours of some of their customers' facilities as well. And I guess at the end of the day, like Sam said, there's no one barn fits all. It's really figuring out like what your comfort level is with different things and what you can manage. And we kind of erred, I think, on the side of keeping things simple. Again, with the individual housing, I think, not to dumb it down, but you can still have a young kid feeding calves, like a high school student, and they can clearly see this calf didn't finish her milk. This one needs to be checked. I think when you look at the auto feeders, you need a more high caliber person. Not to say that we don't have that person, we definitely do, but unfortunately, people, life happens and people take vacations. So this was kind of just dummy proof for us. Again, we have amazing people, but as people changed out, it just made our comfort level. It was just our comfort level of what we thought was the best for us at the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, our research started the day after we had a fire. We took some time to make sure we knew what we wanted and if we wanted to keep raising calves. We all decided as partners, there's 5 of us that own a part of Rosie Lane, really. And so we all decided that it was best in our best interest to keep calves in-house and do them ourselves. Part of Rosie Lane, like who we are, is taking care of animals, and that's something we do well and how we set ourselves apart. So that was important for us to keep doing that going forward. We went to a lot of different sites, saw some barns. We tried to always go see barns this time of year. February and March to me is the best time to go look at calves, because this is one of the harder times of year to keep calves pneumonia free. And yeah, we ended up one summer, that was probably 2020, 2023, I think. We ended up out in South Dakota looking at some setups and saw the barn at Modak Dairy, or the Mo family, and walked into that barn. I had a very different vision of what I wanted for a calf barn. I wanted maybe a little more similar to Christine. My ideal was like 20 different little barns that you could do all in, all out, super easy, turn and burn, clean them all the time, simple ventilation. And we walked into this barn out in South Dakota, and it was 2 hours after feeding, and all the calves were up, perky, alert. They wanted to come check us out. They were chowing down on grain. They looked awesome. I was very skeptical of the ventilation when it was explained to me, and then I saw it in person, how it was working and what it was doing. And for both of us, I went out there with Jordan, my business partner, and it was like snap of a finger. It made sense to us. Like, we knew that was what we wanted. And then we just spent time after that figuring out, how do we fit that barn into our site plan? Where are we going to locate it? And how, like, all the other logistics of getting a plan drawn, and then the nuts and bolts of how high do you want the ceiling? Do you want it the same? How big do you want your pens? For the longest time, we were looking at doing our barn more like hot dog style, but sizing it right for your dairy, so that it was important for us to do what Christine is able to do now, to get in and out. It's trickle in and get all the calves out and pressure wash it down, right? And not have old calves and young calves in the same room at once. And so finding that fine line of how do you build the room just big enough so that it works, that you can kind of almost like from a cash flow or cost point do it, but small enough that you can still turn it. So that took a lot of time and consideration, I think. making all that work. And then, do you want drains? Where do you want drains? How do you want water to come in? Do you want hot water? Do you need a boot wash here? Like, there's just all that little nitpicky stuff that you can really spend a lot of time trying to consider, I think. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it was, so for us, it was probably summer of, I think that was summer of 2023. We knew what we wanted, and it took till, April of 25 to be in that barn. So it takes a while.
So now that you're in it, and I love that both of you guys really preference or emphasize the fact that you wanted it to be calf centric. Obviously, you wanted it to first work for your calves, and the bonus being that it also works for your team. So let's go there for a moment. As you made this shift and now you're in it for ish a year, a little bit longer for some of you folks, what has been some of the best aspects from the people side that they really love about this new setup?
Well, I've been in Christine's barn, and I like that they can feed calves with a Kubota that's heated. So, and the sun comes in their barn. So I'll speak for her.
Yeah, I think, yes, absolutely. We build the barn for the animals, and I have to say that for an employee, from an employee perspective or the caretakers, it is just a really nice environment. Obviously, you're out of the elements. You do get a lot of natural sunlight. We do long day lighting in our barn, so we do 16 hours of bright lights, and then we'll dim them at night. We do feed 3 times a day. We feed milk replacer. We feed the same grain from day one all the way through transitioning onto TMR. But yeah, I think from a labor perspective, we have one person that feeds calves. It takes a couple hours for each feeding. So it's pretty simple, right? They're riding and dispensing milk. They stay in the barn and dump out water and then bring back fresh water. We still bed very heavily. We'll bed probably every other day because we believe that dry calves keeps healthy calves and growthy calves. So if you can just keep them dry, you prevent a lot of issues as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, from our perspective on the people working with calves. So again, same thing. We're in a barn, so you're out of the elements. I like our rail feeding system because calves are in a group and you get the benefits of calves socializing and all that stuff. And then we still feed them individually. There's a learning curve with using headlocks. You can't use a headlock on a calf at day one. So there's always like a training period. But once those calves are trained, man, we can feed calves quick, efficiently. We do everything with bottles. I like having calves suckle. I think that's good for the calf. And we can get a bottle and a nipple clean every feeding. And then handling calves, we try to not use the headlocks much outside of feeding, but for the few vaccines or treatments that we do, if we need follow-up things, we just do it quick right after feeding before we let calves loose, and then you're not chasing calves around. I kind of talked about bedding and cleaning already, but most of it's done with a piece of equipment. There's very few things done by hand. Other things for keeping water in front of calves. So we have our little itty bitty Ritchie fonts that drain under the floor. So there's a drain plumbed to them so that when we clean them, we don't have any humidity running out on the floor. And it's easy to do. So we're cleaning water tanks for calves every day because a baby calf needs clean water and clear water. So I think all those things make it easy for people to do a good job taking care of calves. And I agree with Christine's comment of how do you make it easy and repeatable, and for lack of a better way, yeah, dummy proof that people do the same thing. They feed the calves a bottle and they see, did the calf drink the bottle or did they not? And if they drank a bottle, they're good for today, kind of thing. And everything else around that is an easy task to complete.
Awesome. Well,
So.
there's no mistaking of why we asked both of you guys to talk about your systems. Not only are they beautiful, because they're a little on the shiny side, they're on new, but it's like
Yeah.
you guys are also very attuned to your calf program. You were very cow centric, very cow people. And as we talk through this even here, I kind of want to dive into more on that side, if that's okay with you. The programs that you have for your calves. If it's all right, if we could spend a couple moments, even with these new setups, has that changed at all? Has it made it better when you look at maybe your ultrasound program, or even how you are kind of keeping metrics on and the benchmarks on your calves growing throughout? If we could just kind of dive into that a little bit. Has it changed? Has it stayed the same? Maybe start off what the program is and kind of go from there.
Sure, I can start. Let's see. I think just like Sam, we track performance very, very closely. I would say, we were really happy with our growth in hutches. And again, I was told that I don't think I was going to outperform them, which for me, it was like challenge accepted, right? It's like, okay, you tell me I can't, I'm going to show you I can. So for us, the biggest challenge has been ventilation. So again, I mentioned how our two initial calf barns, we did the positive pressure tubes. We increased the recommendation from what the university was saying. So instead of like 4 air exchanges, we went 6 to 8. When we built our newest barns, I actually built them different. Each one is different. So we're kind of doing our own on-farm trial again because we're so adamant about how can we do better. So in hutches, we did lung ultrasounds, and we were part of a little study. I think Rosie Lane and us and another facility, again, comparing 3 different facilities, but that would have been their previous barn. The hutches were the leader in terms of performance. So again, we had like, I would say 25% of our calves treated for lesions based on the lung ultrasounds. And again, if you were to ask me, are your calves healthy? Do you have pneumonia? I would have said our calves are extremely healthy. We don't have pneumonia. But again, that lung ultrasound has been a really good tool for us to use to find that subclinical respiratory disease and hopefully have ultimately healthier calves at the end of the day. So we still use the lung ultrasounds, and I can say, again, saying we were at maybe like 25% treated in hutches and using that as the standard. We've been kind of all over the board in the barns, all the way as high as 50% to what I would say normally it was like closer to 30 some percent. And even just this last month in January, we got down to 90% ones and only 10% treatments. And really the way we've done that is just push the envelope a little bit on how do we manage these barns? And I know Sam and we have the same veterinarian, so I am always asking how things are performing over there, what you guys are doing. Obviously, totally different systems, but when you talk air exchanges, we're talking the same language. I don't care what kind of facility you have. And I think I had heard, up to 12 air exchanges an hour, and ours are right at that 11 to 12 with our 2 new facilities. And even just using the curtains in our old facilities. So I think the first couple of winters, we kind of we just, put them we set them and left them, right? The curtains are automated. So I love and hate that because I think we got a little bit complacent because we said they're automated, they're doing what they need to do. But then we kind of went back later and said, well, this sucks. We should be doing better. So what can we do differently? Because obviously we need to use what we have. So now we don't ever fully close those curtains. We always leave them cracked. So allowing more fresh air in. And then again, in the new barns, we opted for larger fans and larger tubes in one. And in the other one, we put in these right height fans that again our vet was kind of pushing. They're HVLS fans, so they're like the big industrial ceiling fans. And they have kind of like special louvers that in winter you can reverse them and it's gonna then draw the air in the sidewall and it'll go down and then mix and then draw it up and out. And then we opened the ridge, which on our first snowfall, we had snow in the outside lane of calves there. So we put up a shade cloth, so we're still able to allow air to pass, but we keep the elements out. But that barn, we have to leave the curtains open more. So there's just, I think, like it always comes down to management and being able to manage it and get the results. But I would say in the year ahead, we're really excited to focus more on ventilation and hopefully see some better results. And then hopefully better gains because before adding the last two barns, we were having to move calves out of the facility quicker. So less time on milk, less time in the barns and going into the weaned calf barn as a smaller animal, which I think then makes it that much more difficult in that facility as well.
So then Christine, point of reference, if you don't mind sharing, what are your push points for your gains? Like what are you expecting from your calves?
Yeah, so again, I always try to put things in perspective. So again, in the hutches, when I came back home, we were 9 years ago or so, we were on a pretty average feeding plan, I would say, feeding twice a day. I don't know if it was 2, 3 liters twice a day, and it wasn't even every 12, it wasn't even evenly split. I think it was like 8 and 3 because that was what the
Convenient.
schedule was from when my mom fed calves and had to
Mhm.
work around, or maybe it was 6 and 1. I don't know, but it was not evenly spaced. It was definitely for the person or the people. And now, we feed every 8 hours and, I don't know, it's totally different. And now I forgot your question, sorry.
Like what are your gain benchmarks? Like do you
Oh, the
expect to
gain
eat so
benchmarks.
many pounds per day? Like what
Yeah,
kind of
so again, we were probably starting at 1.5. We got up 1.8 pretty easily just by feeding more milk. And then I think from management things, we've been able to attain that 2 pounds average daily gain. I know I've heard farms that are pushing 2.5 to 3. We haven't been able to hit those numbers. But again, everybody has different nutrition plans, how many days on milk. I think you have to look at all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So we're around that 2 pounds average daily gain. Obviously, I'd like it higher. I think we always do naturally, but yeah, figuring out what we can manage and do.
and remind me, what's your average weaning age?
So we like to keep calves on milk 10 weeks and we'll keep them in the calf barns 12 weeks. So that weaning weight is that 12-week weight actually. So we weigh them when they go into the new barn. And it's a little bit subjective because we also weren't getting true birth weight. So we were weighing calves after 2 feedings of colostrum. So we thought we're actually seeing a lot higher birth weight. So we're finally making the thing full circle. Again, we're not perfect by any means. We think we do well, but there's always things that show us there's better, different ways of doing things. So we do take weights at birth. We've been doing weaning weights for a long, long time. Then we were doing 4-month weights to kind of see how they transition into that weaned calf facility. And then we would grab an individual weight before they'd go to the grower at 6 months, which sounds great. But then, as we've grown, we eliminated the 4-month weight because they were getting pushed out of our system at 4 months. So then it becomes hard to track. But now we finally got another scale where we're getting fresh heifer weight. So I think we're finally just gonna make it full circle of looking at the weight of those animals coming in, because I know everybody knows the research that if you can invest in them the first 2 months of life, 3 months of life, they're going to pay dividends, but also looking at the weight of that animal compared to the mature average cow in your herd, and making sure we're hitting that mark as well, because it's a full program. You can do great the first 8 weeks, but then if they fall apart after that, or say your breeding program isn't quite adequate, then there's so many opportunities for things to go south. So making sure we're looking at every sector and making it full circle.
And when you say full circle, are you guys through this feeding program long enough that that first group is now calving in, or are you seeing them calve in twice? Like how far through this full circle have you come?
Well, it's hard to answer that because um I think we're always changing. We're all always evolving, right? You can say, I mean, it's always amazing to me to look at our production and see how much we've increased in production. And I would like to say a lot of that is from improvements we've made in our early calf program, but there's just so many factors. It's hard for me to say one way or another, but overall, we're doing a lot of things right, clearly, to see the levels of production we're seeing and the improvements we've made.
Absolutely. Well, I really focused in on you and I was not intentionally ignoring you, Sam. So I want to give you a chance to chime in here too, as far as like have your protocols. When we take a step back to the initial question that really got me tunnel vision there, I apologize. When you look at your protocols, because you guys are again really great calf and cow people, have you tweaked protocols? Have you enhanced them? Have they stayed the same? Just kind of back us up so we can zoom in on you now.
Yeah, so a lot of my focus or journey in calf raising in the last couple of years has been a result of lung ultrasounds. And I hear other people that have done lung ultrasounds say the same thing. I think we use them to treat calves. So it's the Dr. Olivet at Madison, promotes the wean clean idea. So a lot of post weaning pneumonia starts pre-weaning, and then that stress just pushes them over the edge. So big believers in that. So we're trying to get calves cleaned up, but that's a good non-subjective way or a good objective way for us to measure how are we doing. And it's kind of, for me, it's a leading indicator of weights and other things. So if we're keeping calves scour free, that makes them usually more pneumonia free. And if we're keeping them pneumonia free, weights and other things follow. So we saw in our old facility when we were raising calves ourselves that there was a pretty positive correlation between total protein and colostrum management and lung ultrasound scores. Or really, that's a negative correlation. So the better we did on total proteining and starting calves off right in maternity, the cleaner their lungs were at weaning. And so it's all related. It's how can you get a calf to be born in a clean environment and get good high quality colostrum in them as soon as you can correctly, and then set that calf up well. I think it's all related to gut health. And so it starts with keeping them scour free for the first 14 days of life. Can everybody still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, just making sure because Amber's screen or Cassie's screen froze. So it's all about keeping them scour free for that first 2 or 3 weeks of life. I think that sets them up good for pneumonia and keeps their lungs clean, and it just all is following after that. So things that I measure a lot, and then there's always what I measure, and then when I report back to the team to keep it simple, I think. So similar things, I look at average daily gain, percent of calves that doubled their birth weight between birth and weaning. And then also, I focus a lot on completion percent, and I try to take basically a positive spin on death loss. So how many of the calves that were born and made it into the calf barn left the calf barn? How many of them are making it to the grower? Our ultimate goal for completion rate is to get 90% of our calves born alive to make it to the fresh pen as a 2-year-old. And we're doing that, which is awesome. We weren't always, and kind of before I forget it, it reminded me. Christine was talking a little bit about when Cassie was grilling her on improvements, and are you seeing those calves making it into the fresh pen? I will say there was a time before our old calf barn was out of the picture where we were raising some of our own calves in paired housing. We were out of room, and so basically our overflow was going to a grower that was individually raising them in hutches. And who knows how much of it was related to what, but the calves that were paired housed, just even as mature lactating cows, just handled stress and transitions and being around people and other animals so different and so much better, I thought, than individual calves. But back to other stuff, Christine was talking about average daily gain and other things. A good goal for us in our old facility was always if we could hit 1.8, we were rocking it. We've been fortunate in our new barn to hit 2, sometimes, closer to 2.5, no problem. And so, like 2.2 is kind of our normal range for birth to wean. And birth to wean for us it is actually also after both colostrums, and then our weaning weight we take anywhere, it's basically when a room in the barn is fully weaned, so anywhere basically from 3 weeks to a couple days post-weaning. But I think there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. People can, I don't want to say cheat, but you need to do what's right for your calves. It's all about, I explain this to people when I train them, that everything we're doing in the calf barn is first off to support the parlor because we're a dairy farm. Everything, it starts with the parlor and we're selling milk and we're doing everything on the fringes to make that go well. So we want every cow that's going to the parlor to be healthy, producing a lot of high quality milk. So we need to do a good job in maternity taking care of the cow, and then we also need to do a good job taking care of the calf. We want them alive, healthy, and well going through the calf barn. My point is, we want to do all that and have them make it through. I'm really getting off on a tangent now, but that's kind of my philosophy on things is we want, yeah, every calf to, my point though was, so we want my team on calves or my calf team, our goal is to get a calf transition basically to a ruminating animal as quickly and as healthily as possible. So a big focus for us is to get calves on TMR as quick as we can. TMR is easy, logistically cheap. And once they're on TMR, they soar, right? So, we look at things that way. I think like average daily gain can be influenced by, you can just feed calves a lot. You can feed them a gallon of milk 4 times a day for 14 weeks and you'll have a really good birth to wean average daily gain. I think of the secret sauce is, can you do that and then transition them to solid feed and get them off of milk without them getting sick? So I think there's a lot of people that, or there's something to be said about even, at 1.7 pounds a day of average daily gain, if you're doing that well and keeping calves healthy and they're ruminating by the time they're 10, 12 weeks old, like that's just as good in my mind. So that's how I look at it. But I think boils down to, for us, the big thing I report to employees, or I should say team members, is average daily gain, completion rate or survivability, and kind of the same token of average daily gain is how many are doubling their birth weight. So
Awesome. Thank you for that. So what's next for you guys? As you continue to push the envelope, continue to grow into your facility and continue to evolve, what's next? Let's maybe hone it in a little bit and let's look at your calf program. So when you look at your calves in that section, what's next?
Well, I'll start since Christine started most of the time. So I had a burning answer to that. So we have an intern coming this summer. Well, she might not know this yet, but a project I'm giving her, hopefully she's not listening and finding out right now, is we've been talking forever. We want to figure out how to feed transition milk. So milk that's in between colostrum and normal white milk that you find in the bulk tank. We've been trying to figure out the logistics of that forever since I've been feeding calves full time. So that's our goal this summer, is to collect that and try to process it separately and feed that to calves. There's some, it all makes sense anecdotally. There's some good research coming out of Cornell showing the positive benefits to calves. And so just that extra, that's one less additive in Band-Aid that some sales gimmick has to come and sell me on the farm. It's something straight from the cow that nature invented, that I can feed to calves. And I think it all boils down to gut health again and keeping calves cruising right along. They don't get scours, they don't get pneumonia, they don't get all these other things. So how can we do everything preventatively really well in the first 24 hours and the first 2 weeks of life? And just eliminate the need for a needle on the farm. I don't know if we'll ever get that way, but trying to limit how many needles we use in the calf program. So
Absolutely, especially at such a volatile and a susceptible time frame for them.
yeah.
So what about you, Christine? What's next? What's next for your calf program?
So I have 3 things. I would say, we do a phenomenal job with calf health now. The only time we really lose calves is within the first 2 days of life, which always takes me back to maternity. So we have amazing maternity people. Again, we have a lot of benchmarks there, and we have monthly trainings, and we share performance, how we're doing, what we need to focus on. Really minimizing DOAs, making sure calves are born in the straw bedded pack, getting the colostrum into them. We've taken it as far now as my really looking closer at colostrum quality and quantity, thinking that we are feeding. I think we got too good at our jobs, is what I've been joking with the vet, because I think we're feeding this colostrum that is super high quality, as well as a large amount of it. And I think we've already taken a reduction in how much we feed, but now we're just trying to track, like, what is the bricks on the first feeding, what is the bricks on the second feeding, and then when we do have those rare occurrences happen of death loss, can we tie that back, and can we set some new limitations on some of that stuff? Again, blood total proteins is something we focus on. So like for January, we averaged 96% excellent, and we had just about 2% good, 2% fair, no poor. So I think, again, we're doing an excellent job, but maybe almost too good in terms of our colostrum program. So that's one thing I'm really focusing on this year, looking ahead. Another one would be respiratory disease. So again, we're kind of doing our own on-farm trial with two different, now we have 3 different kinds of ventilation, I guess you could say, in our wet calves. So seeing what really is working the best, and then hopefully modifying some of those if possible. And then the last one is just finally having all in, all out, and seeing what that can do for us now that we have the ability to deep clean these barns once they're empty and have more downtime between calves.
Awesome. Well, as we wrap up today's segment, thank you. Thank you, both of you, for your time, your expertise, and just being willing to really open that barn door. Show us, tell us, kind of talk us through some of the decisions that went into. So again, thank you for your time here today. As we do wrap up, and again, the initial focus was to start about really talking about the facility design and the whys and how you did it. If there was one key takeaway that you wanted to leave with fellow dairy farmers really on the calf side of things, what would you want them to walk away with?
I can go. So I think it comes down to what, like Sam said, when you tour facilities, you're gonna finally like walk into a barn and just be like, I like this. This fits our style, our management. Let's do this. But doing what's right for your business, and what meets your comfort level, because I don't think there's one right way to do it. Obviously, you can see Sam and I are both getting really good results. We're both very happy with our calf barns, but they are very different in terms of style. So just making sure whatever you do meets your management and comfort levels.
Like it.
Well, you're really
Yeah,
pinning me
yeah.
in the corner. Biggest takeaway. I think if we're talking about facilities, yeah, I think like everything needs to be dialed in on for me, when I train a new team member, it's we need to feed calves, we need to do dishes, and we need to bed calves. Those are like the 3 basic things. So I think we can't stray away from those 3 things. How do you want to do them, and what's going to streamline that? To me, on any dairy anywhere, labor is going to potentially or continue to be more and more of a crunch. So how can you do the feeding, bedding, and cleaning, the basics of raising calves, easier with whatever next steps, or even a retrofit? What can you change in your barn? Sometimes you have to spend money to get there, but what will you save in the long run, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate it. Appreciate both of it. Again, appreciate your time, your insights, and again, your willingness to just go there. So again, thank you guys. Thank you for joining us. And to all of our listeners today, and whenever you listen to this episode, thank you for joining in. Thank you to our national sponsors and partners who make not only the Dairy Signal, but other programs that you see PDP execute throughout the year. Thank you for staying with PDPW, but truly, true form, you are sponsoring and supporting fellow dairy farmers. So thank you for what you do and working alongside us. Without further ado, thank you for joining in, and hopefully we hear you and see you listen in on another Dairy Signal episode. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.